Something happened yesterday that was really hard for me. It was just really triggering, and I didn't realize that just below the surface I had a lot of pain, a lot of hurt. And I remember when I saw the old radiation oncologist who retired since I had radiation 4 years ago. And he said at that time, somebody who goes through chemo, surgery, and radiation would very likely have PTSD. Like, just going through that process is very traumatizing to some degree. And I really fancied myself the kind of person that couldn't get down by life, could take a hit and keep on going and stay positive and stay optimistic and buoyant. And that's how I've always related to myself. So I would hear something like that and think, well, not me. That's not going to happen to me. Yeah, that happens to other people who maybe are predisposed to being hurt, depressed, or sad, or mopey, or woeful, or something. So that was just going through surgery, radiation, and cancer. Well, at the end, while I was still going through the reconstruction, I had a lot of complications and ended up getting this diagnosis of ITP, thrombocytopenia, which means basically like my platelets have never recovered. I don't know what the statistics are, but there is evidence out there and some information for people who, when you go through particular types of when you go through chemo, and I think it might be the cisplatins or a certain type, there can be an incidence of a person ending up with low platelet issue. I don't know if it's always ITP. That's what I have. It's idiopathic thrombocytopenia, so they say they don't know how it happened, and they don't know like why it happened or how it happened, but there does seem to be some correlation with people who've gone through chemo. So at that point in 2019, I had already been going through all the cancer treatment and stuff for about a year and a half. And I had an expander fail. My skin ruptured. The expander didn't rupture, but my skin around it did rupture. It pressed through my skin. It broke through my skin. And I was having this leakage of fluid, not from the expander, not saline, but from my own bodily fluid. So I'd gotten back from a trip across the country. I was admitted into the Stanford ER, and my platelets were 11,000, which is like super, super warning, major problem. So I had no idea I had a platelet issue. When we looked back, we saw that was in June, and then February, so however many months, that is a few months, is when there was a dip in my platelets, but nobody caught it. So I had been cruising around, with this low platelet issue. Thank God, nothing worse happened, really. I can't even imagine. So from that, I was in the ER. I was getting pummeled by antibiotics, tons of pharmaceuticals, tons of antibiotics, multiple surgeries again. They had to remove that tissue expander in an emergency situation, and that might have been when I got another hematoma. I can't even remember. But then I had the expander replaced again some number of months later. So I went around with one expander for a while, and then I had some months later, I had them put the expander back in, and so it was just surgery upon surgery, anesthesia, antibiotics. When I first was diagnosed with the ITP and they found out, they put me on steroids, and anyone who's been on steroids, boy, those things are insane. They are crazy making. I had an experience where I was driving my car right around my house, came to a stop sign. My foot and my brain were not in communication. My brain said, oh, look, there's a car coming, you can't go yet. And my foot was like, let's go. So it was like this weird, total disconnect between my body operating, my body functioning normally and naturally, and my brain operating. They were out of sync. So, and then after I just got completely, just over the whole process of it, I said, like, I just want these expanders out. I can't do this construction anymore, this reconstruction. It's just too much. and then now on top of that, I'm dealing with the platelets. I'm dealing with low platelets, with the steroids, and with trying to do ITP drugs. So I'm putting all these other drugs in my body, per the doctor's suggestions on how to get me better. And then so I got the expanders taken out. And at that point, I had them in for a year and a half. People usually have them in for a couple of months. That's how long they're supposed to be in. That's how long they're usually in. They're just sort of a placeholder. I had them in actually because I ended up getting radiation. I looked at getting direct to implant, which is one of the options you can have when you go through breast cancer. My plastic surgeon advised against it. He said he would do it if I really wanted that, but he advised against it. And so anyway, I didn't do it. And then they said, well, you're getting radiation. You don't want to radiate an implant. They can radiate the expanders. And the expanders were a total pain in the ass for the radiation. I had to wear this bolus, and the beam was an added complication to all that. So right now I've been dealing with this ITP now for 3 years. My platelets haven't resolved. I pretty much take care of it by getting these monthly infusions of immunoglobulin, which boosts my platelets back up. It's a type of blood product. I don't understand it, but I do know that thousands of people donate their blood. They scrub the blood and do whatever they do to it to get 60 grams of this immunoglobulin that I get every month, every 3 to 5 weeks. And it's basically what is keeping me, okay, alive, well, by getting this infusion every month. So backing up a little bit, when I had the expanders taken out, I also had the port taken out. So I did that at the same time. And then a few months later, I had this bleeding episode. So I thought, so when you go through chemo, most people, I think, have chemical menopause depending on their age. I had chemical menopause. I lost my period. And they say sometimes you can get it back. It depends how old you are. I was 43 at the time of diagnosis. So I thought I was getting my period back. But one of the days where, I was bleeding, I bled immensely. I was bleeding massive amounts. And I was also bleeding these huge blood clots. Huge. I mean, the size of your fist practically. They were really, really big. And so I was kind of watching it, seeing how I felt, trying to drink water, do whatever I needed to do. And then after it basically went on for 24 hours. I was like, okay, this is obviously I have a problem. I live 5 minutes from the hospital, so I got myself into the emergency room, and I continued to bleed for another 24 hours. That was a whole thing, in that they weren't giving me something to stop the blood, so I needed to have 3 blood transfusions. Anyway, I'm adding all of that. I've told my story on this channel now for a few years, but what I realized from having this interaction with somebody yesterday was that PTSD diagnosis, or at least he wasn't diagnosing me at the time, but he was saying yeah, that's usually what happens. And then I added all this other stuff on top of it. I mean, that alone, I think the two of them together is PTSD squared or something. And so somebody said something to me, and I'm not going to repeat it and get all into that because it's not really relevant, but it was hurtful and painful. And I realized oh man, the problem wasn't what they said to me. The problem was that I was just about, just below the surface, just about to burst. So I was crying driving home, and I haven't really, just sobbing. When you sob, actually I cry when I watch sweet rescue dog videos or cute cat videos, or, touching things like that. Not those kind of tears. Not warm, sweet, superficial, warm tears like that. This was just it's I felt so well, I will say what it was that it hit me the interaction with him hit me right in one of my most vulnerable places, which is that one of the hardest things that I've dealt with since going through all the treatments, and since all those things I just said happened on top of all the treatments, is I've really suffered cognitive decline. And when I've spoken to anybody face to face, I've asked anesthesiologists, I've asked my hematologist oncologist, I've looked online, I have asked people in face to face, and I have done a lot of research online, and nowhere can I find anything, because there's no evidence that says that cognitive decline is like a long-term effect that happens to somebody under 65. So there is some evidence out there for people who are older, older, as they say, over 65. Well, I'm 47, I'll be 48. I'm not that far from 65. But, yes, yet I'm not 65. And I know from my own experience, one of the things I've had the hardest time with is my ability to concentrate is totally diminished. And my ability to, basically track is what I say. So say follow a story. If someone's telling a story and they start here and they take you and they're telling you this and telling you this and they get to this part of the story, and then I'm trying to remember back to what happened here, I lose the trajectory. I'm not able to, whatever that is, hold something and hold it together and keep it going and get to the end and have a holistic picture of it. I call that tracking. I can't track the conversation from start to finish. If it's complicated and involved, if it's something simple, yes, but if it's multi-layered, and I noticed that last night, somebody was describing something and I was just yep, can't do it. And it brought up so much pain for me, because it was just the reality of that. I have people telling me no, that's not possible, or no, there's no evidence showing that. So I was supposed to get this endoscopy, and they were going to put me in this twilight sedation, which is fentanyl and Versed. And I'm I just cannot put any more. Yeah, I feel the emotion of it. I just can't put any more toxic pharmaceutical poison in my body. I just had poison for so long. So I feel really good about the fact that I declined getting that endoscopy. But yeah, I guess I just got really present to, wow, I think I have had a PTSD event. I feel dumb. Like, if somebody just told me everything I said that they've gone through, I'd be like, well, yeah. How could you not get that? But I feel like it's taken me all this time to put the pieces together and realize, like, it was traumatizing. And I'm not through the other side yet. I don't know if I'll get through the other side. I think that's the thing that's also really hard about it, is I keep thinking, people talk about this new normal, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to get there. I do feel like I'm getting a little bit better than I was, but nowhere near where I was. And so I'm trying to just find peace and find comfort in who I am and how I am now, even though sometimes I'm, feel like I'm fumbling in the dark trying to figure out who I am and how I am. So yeah, it was really, on the one hand, it was devastating in a way. It was crushing. I was like, it hurt. And on the other hand, I feel a little bit of relief. I feel a little bit of the sun poking through the clouds, because I didn't realize that just below the surface, there was a lot of emotion. There was a lot of hurt. There was a lot of pain that needed to break through, that needed to break out. So having this cathartic crying, just blah, happen. I spent the day today I didn't want to talk to anybody. Not so much just I hate the world or something, but more just I need to take a day to myself. I need to just not respond or not deal with anybody today. And thankfully I could do that. My life is set up in such a way that I could just take a day off, I guess a mental health day or a self-care day or whatever you want to call it. and reflect. And I was able to write in my journal, which was really helpful. I kind of just like rehashed, you know, the whole experience, and then have been able to see like what's underneath it. So I don't know, I just wanted to share that, and I wanted to give empathy and just some recognition to this process. You know, I guess there are people out there who get through it swiftly. There are people out there who like go through cancer, just say breast cancer in my case. I know there are other types, many of other types of cancers, but I don't know what those journeys are like. I only know what mine was like through breast cancer. But there do seem to be people out there who kind of like bounce back. And I just thought that I would be that person, you know, I can't believe that I wasn't that person. And I just had these series of complications, one after another. And it's a process. It's really a process. And I feel just being gentle with myself and having compassion for myself is just so important. And also having ways to like release. You know, I go to this EMDR therapist every week, and I love her because she's really the only person in my life that I can tell everything to, you know, across every segment of my life. She knows the people, she knows the situation, she knows everything about my health situation intimately. She's really the only person that I can bounce off, like, you know, what I'm thinking, who I'm going to talk to, when my next appointment is, all my labs, just everything. And with her, I haven't really had much emotion or many tears arise. Occasionally something will arise, but not this like just deep sobbing, you know, this deep painful sobbing. So I feel grateful that I was able to like let something out, let something go. Hopefully it lifts a weight off, and just be able to have some compassion for me. So I sympathize and empathize with anybody who's going through this process and getting through cancer. It is not a straight line, and it is not a, you know, short distance to the finish line. Like it really takes something, and it's not easy. So you have my deepest and warmest and most sincere compassion if you're going through this too. And I just wanted to share something that felt really real to me and vulnerable, and hopefully it helps somebody. I don't know, let me know if it does. But bless you, take good care of you, and be well.